My girlfriend told me I was dependable and steady, but she'd choose her ex over me without question if he came back. I didn't argue or beg. I just said, thanks for the honesty, and started making arrangements. Now he's married to someone else and she's frantically trying to work things out. This happened about 2 months ago, and I'm still processing everything that went down. I'm 28M, and I was with my girlfriend Lisa, 27F, for almost 3 years. We met at a work conference. She was representing her PR agency, I was there for my consulting firm. The connection was instant, or at least I thought it was. She was brilliant, driven, the kind of person who could command a room just by walking into it. I genuinely thought we were building something lasting together. But looking back, there were always these little comments that should have been red flags. She'd mention her ex, Ryan, in ways that felt reverent, I guess. How he was so passionate about his work, or how he really understood the creative process. I tried not to read too much into it. Everyone has a past, and I figured if she was with me, she'd chosen me. Ryan was her college boyfriend and then some. They'd dated for 4 years, lived together for 2 of those, and had this whole life planned out. He was a musician, the kind of guy who'd play guitar on the beach at sunset and write songs about their relationship. They broke up about a year before I met Lisa, when he decided to pursue his music career full-time and moved to Nashville. According to Lisa, it was devastating but necessary because she couldn't follow him and abandon her career. I'm not a musician. I'm a business consultant who specializes in process optimization. I like structure, clear goals, and measurable outcomes. I play tennis on weekends, and my idea of spontaneity is trying a new restaurant without making a reservation. Not worse than Ryan, just completely different. At least, that's what I told myself. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Saturday night in February. We'd just finished dinner at this nice Italian place. I'd made reservations weeks in advance for what I thought would be a romantic evening. We were back at my apartment, sharing a bottle of wine and talking about random stuff when Lisa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her entire demeanor shifted. Not in an alarmed way, but like someone had just reminded her of something important that she'd forgotten about. Ryan's back in town, she said, still staring at her phone. He's asking if I want to meet up and catch up. I felt this weird twist in my stomach, but I tried to keep my voice neutral. Oh, that's cool. It would probably be nice to reconnect with an old friend. She was quiet for a long moment, still looking at her phone. Then she looked up at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like she was seeing me from a distance. Marcus, she said, you're really understanding. I've always valued that about you. Something in her tone made me set down my wine glass. What do you mean? She finally put her phone aside and turned to face me fully. I mean, you're not possessive or dramatic. You're stable. Mature. She paused, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. You're safe. Safe. The word landed wrong, but I didn't interrupt. Ryan was never safe, she continued, and there was this wistfulness in her voice that made my chest tighten. He was unpredictable and intense, and he made me feel like I was living in a movie, you know? Like every day could be an adventure or a disaster, and I never knew which. I should have changed the subject then. Should have told her this wasn't a conversation I wanted to have. But part of me needed to hear where this was going. But that's exhausting, right? I said, trying to sound reasonable. Drama and uncertainty aren't exactly the foundation for a stable relationship. Lisa was quiet again, turning her wine glass in her hands. Then she looked at me with this expression that I'll probably never forget, like she was about to tell me something she'd been holding back for a long time. Marcus, she said, I need to tell you something, and I hope you'll appreciate my honesty. My heart started racing, but I nodded. If Ryan called me tomorrow and said he'd made a mistake, that he wanted to try again, I would go back to him. Without question. Without hesitation. The silence that followed felt endless. I could hear the refrigerator humming, could hear cars passing by outside, could hear my own heartbeat. But I couldn't process what she'd just said. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, she continued, like she was trying to soften the blow. And I know it's not fair to you. But I respect you too much to lie. You deserve to be with someone who chooses you completely, and I don't know if I can be that person. Not when I still feel this way about him. I stared at her for what felt like forever. Part of me wanted to argue, to ask her why she'd wasted 3 years of my life if she felt this way. Part of me wanted to ask what was so wrong with me that I couldn't compete with a memory. But mostly, I felt this strange sense of relief. Thanks for the honesty, I said finally. She blinked. That's it? You're not going to say anything else? I stood up from the couch, surprised by how calm I felt. What else is there to say, Lisa? You just told me that if your ex decided he wanted you back, you'd leave me without a second thought. I heard you clearly. Marcus, I didn't mean. You meant it, I interrupted. And honestly, I'm grateful you told me. It explains a lot about our relationship. I walked to the bedroom and started pulling some of her things out of the closet, the stuff she kept here for nights she stayed over. Lisa followed me, suddenly looking panicked. What are you doing? Gathering your things, I said, folding one of her sweaters. I assume you'll want them when you leave. Marcus, wait. Can we discuss this? I was just being honest about my feelings. I thought that's what healthy relationships were supposed to have. I stopped packing and looked at her. Lisa, you didn't just admit to having feelings for your ex. You told me that you've been with me for 3 years while knowing you'd abandon me the moment he became available again. You told me I'm your placeholder. That's not. It's exactly what you said. I went back to folding her clothes. And the fact that you thought I'd appreciate hearing that, or that it was somehow healthy to share? That tells me everything I need to know about how you see me and what this relationship means to you. She sat down on the bed, looking shocked. I do love you, Marcus. I do. No, Lisa. You love the security I provide. You love having someone dependable who doesn't rock the boat while you wait for your real life to start again. But you're not in love with me, and you just made that crystal clear. I packed her workout clothes, her phone charger, the book she'd been reading. The whole time, Lisa sat there looking like she couldn't believe this was happening. So that's it? She said as I handed her the bag. You're just ending things? I walked her to the door. You ended things the moment you told me you'd choose him over me without question. I'm just acknowledging reality. But Marcus, Lisa, you gave me a choice. Stay with someone who sees me as a consolation prize, or respect myself enough to walk away. Thanks for making it clear which one I should pick. The next few days were rough, I won't lie. I took some time off work, spent a lot of time at the gym, and had several long conversations with my brother about what had happened. She actually said she'd choose him without question? My brother Kevin asked over beers at our usual spot downtown. Word for word. And she thought you'd just accept that? I shrugged. I think she thought I'd fight for her. Or maybe she thought I'd be grateful she was being honest instead of just cheating on me when he came back. Kevin shook his head. The audacity to think you'd compete for someone who just told you you're their backup plan. Over the following week, Lisa texted constantly. At first, it was apologies mixed with explanations. She was confused about her feelings and didn't mean it the way it sounded. Then it shifted to bargaining. She'd canceled her meetup with Ryan, she was committed to working on us, she'd even consider couples therapy. I didn't respond to any of it. I was too busy focusing on myself and figuring out what I actually wanted. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based solely on what I needed, not what would make someone else comfortable. I threw myself into work, picked up extra projects, and started going to the gym regularly. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed having my own routine without having to check in with someone or make sure my plans didn't conflict with theirs. It wasn't that Lisa had been controlling, she hadn't, but there's something freeing about only having to consider your own schedule. 2 weeks after our breakup, Kevin called me with barely contained laughter in his voice. Marcus, you need to check Ryan's Instagram. Kevin, I'm not stalking her ex on social media. That's not healthy. Just trust me on this one. His handle is @RyanMusic_official. Look at his latest post. Against my better judgment, I looked up Ryan's account. It was full of photos from various music venues, recording studios, and artistic shots of his guitar. The latest post was from 2 days ago, a photo of him kissing a woman at what looked like a courthouse, with the caption when you know, just married my best friend and biggest fan at Jenny_Nashville. Sometimes the best things happen when you're not looking for them. I stared at the photo for a long time. This was the guy Lisa would choose without question. The man she'd been carrying a torch for all this time. He'd been in town probably to share his news with old friends, and here I was, single because my girlfriend couldn't get over someone who had just married someone else. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Lisa had been telling me I was just her backup plan, her first choice had been falling in love with someone else entirely. He'd moved on, built a new life, found his person, and Lisa had been holding on to a ghost. Did you see it? Kevin asked when I called him back. Yeah, I saw it. Do you think Lisa knows? I thought about all her unanswered texts, her promises to work on us, her sudden realization that maybe she'd made a mistake. I have a feeling I'm about to find out. I was right. That evening, as I was cooking dinner and actually enjoying the peace of my own apartment, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Lisa standing there, looking like she'd been crying. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. We stood there for a moment, and I could see her trying to figure out what to say. I saw Ryan yesterday, she said finally. Okay. He's married. I know. She looked surprised. You know? He posted about it on social media, Lisa. It's not exactly a secret. She wrapped her arms around herself, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. He showed me pictures of the wedding. Told me all about this woman Jenny he met in Nashville. They've been together for 6 months, and apparently, he proposed after 3 months because he knew she was the one. I didn't say anything. She seemed perfect for him. Really perfect. More perfect than I ever was. Her voice was getting shakier. He was so happy, Marcus. Happier than I remember him being with me. Good for them. Marcus, she said, and her voice was shaking. I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Okay. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I'd built him up in my head all these years, made him into this perfect fantasy. And when he reached out, it brought up all these old feelings, and I thought, she stopped, shaking her head. I don't know what I thought. But I was wrong. About everything. I could see where this was going. Lisa, please, let me finish. She took a step closer. Sitting in that coffee shop with him, listening to him talk about Jenny and their wedding and how in love he is. I realized something. He's not the person I fell in love with in college. That person doesn't exist anymore. And neither do I, for that matter. She paused, looking at me with an expression that was desperate and hopeful at the same time. I realized that the life I actually want, the person I actually am now, that's all tied up with you. You're not my backup plan, Marcus. You're my real life. The life I chose and built and want to keep building. I felt that familiar ache in my chest, but I'd had 2 weeks to think about this. 2 weeks to really process what had happened and what it meant. Lisa, I said carefully, do you hear yourself right now? What do you mean? You're telling me that you realized you wanted me only after you confirmed that Ryan doesn't want you. You're telling me you choose me now because your first choice is off the table. Her face fell. That's not, yes, seeing Ryan helped me realize some things, but nothing. I stepped back from the door. Lisa, I don't want to be chosen because I'm what's left. I want to be chosen because I'm what someone wants most. And you just proved, again, that I'm not that for you. Marcus, please. I love you. I know I do now. Now. You know you love me now. After you confirmed you couldn't have who you really wanted. I started to close the door, but she put her hand against it. What can I do? She asked, tears streaming down her face. How can I fix this? I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I'll cut off all contact with Ryan permanently. I'll move to another city if that's what it takes. I looked at her for a long moment. There was real pain in her eyes, and I believed that she was sorry. I even believed that she thought she loved me. But I also knew something she hadn't figured out yet. Lisa, you can't fix this. Because the problem isn't that you said something hurtful or made a mistake. The problem is that you spent 3 years with me while believing someone else was your person. That's not something you apologize for. That's something you learn from. I gently moved her hand away from the door. I hope you do learn from it. I hope you find someone who makes you feel the way you thought Ryan did, and I hope you don't waste their time while you figure it out. Marcus, I'm not angry anymore, Lisa. I was at first, but I'm not now. I'm actually grateful. You saved me from wasting more years on something that was never going to be what I needed it to be. I started to close the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. But I'm not going to wait around while you figure out what that is. Please, she whispered. Can't we at least try? Can't you give me one more chance to prove that I choose you? I looked at her one last time. Lisa, you already had your chance to choose me. You had 3 years to choose me. Instead, you chose to keep me around while you waited for someone else. I'm not interested in being your consolation prize anymore. That was 6 weeks ago. Lisa texted a few more times, but they've tapered off. I heard through mutual friends that she's been seeing a therapist and working on understanding her attachment patterns, which sounds like a good thing for her. I also heard she's been asking about me, whether I'm dating anyone, how I'm doing, if I've mentioned her. The mutual friends have been diplomatically vague, which I appreciate. As for me, I've been rediscovering who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs. I joined a hiking group, started learning Spanish, and signed up for a cooking class. Turns out I'm actually pretty good at making pasta from scratch. I've also been reading more books I want to read, not books that Lisa thought would broaden my horizons or make me more culturally aware. I renovated my apartment too. Painted the walls a color I actually liked instead of the beige Lisa preferred because it was calming and neutral. I bought a leather couch that she would have said was too masculine and hung up artwork that I found interesting instead of the abstract pieces she insisted were more sophisticated. For the first time in years, my space felt like mine. Last month, I met someone at the hiking group. Her name is Sarah, and she's a veterinarian who moved here from Colorado for a job opportunity. We've been on 4 dates now, and every conversation feels easy and natural. When she looks at me, I can tell I'm not being compared to anyone else. I'm just me, and that seems to be exactly what she's interested in. Sarah has never once mentioned an ex in a wistful way. She's never made me feel like I'm competing with a memory or living up to some impossible standard. When I told her about my breakup with Lisa, not all the details, just that it ended because we wanted different things, she simply said, "That must have been difficult, but it sounds like you handled it well." No drama, no analysis of what Lisa might have been thinking, no suggestions about how I could have done things differently. Just acknowledgement and acceptance. I don't know where things with Sarah will go, but I know one thing for sure, I'll never again settle for being someone's backup plan. I'd rather be alone than be safe. I'd rather be chosen first or not at all. Lisa taught me that, even if she didn't mean to. And for that lesson, as painful as it was, I'm actually grateful. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly what you don't want. Lisa did that for me, and now I know exactly what I do want, someone who chooses me without question, not someone who chooses me after their fantasy falls apart. I'm worth being someone's first choice. We all are. Update, added 1 week later. A few people asked for an update, and while there isn't much to add, something happened yesterday that felt worth sharing. I was at the grocery store, and I ran into Ryan. I recognized him from his Instagram photos, though he looked different in person, older, more settled, but in a good way. He was wearing a wedding ring and had this contentment about him that seemed genuine. He recognized me too, somehow. Maybe Lisa had shown him photos, or maybe our city's smaller than I think. "You're Marcus, right?" he said, approaching me in the produce section. My first instinct was to feel awkward, but he seemed genuinely friendly, so I nodded. "I'm Ryan. I think we have a mutual ex." "Yeah," I figured. We stood there for a moment, and then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I heard you and Lisa broke up. I'm sorry if my being in town caused any problems." I shook my head. "It didn't. I mean, it was the catalyst, but it didn't cause anything. The problems were already there." He nodded thoughtfully. "Lisa's a good person, but she's got some things to work through." "Yeah, I figured that out." "For what it's worth," he said, "she talked about you a lot when we got coffee. It was obvious she cared about you, even if she didn't know how to show it properly." I smiled. "Thanks. And congratulations on your marriage. You seem really happy." His whole face lit up. "Thank you. Jenny is amazing. I've never felt anything like this before, you know? Like everything before was just preparing me for the real thing." And that's when it really clicked for me. Ryan wasn't Lisa's great lost love. He was just her first serious love, and she'd confused the intensity of first love with the idea that he was the one. But he'd moved on and found his actual person, while Lisa had spent years holding on to something that was never meant to last. "I hope you find that too," Ryan said, like he could read my thoughts. "I think I'm starting to," I replied, and meant it. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. He mentioned his music career was going well, asked about my work, made some comment about how expensive groceries had gotten. Normal, friendly conversation between two people who had no reason to dislike each other. Walking back to my car, I felt this incredible sense of closure. Meeting Ryan, talking to him, realizing that he was just a regular person who'd moved on with his life, it made me feel even more confident that I'd made the right choice. Lisa wasn't pining for Ryan specifically. She was pining for a feeling, a time in her life, a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. And she'd rather chase that ghost than build something real with someone who was actually there. Her loss. My gain. Sarah and I are going on a weekend hiking trip next month, and I'm genuinely excited. Not because I need someone to validate me or prove Lisa wrong, but because Sarah seems like someone worth getting to know better. Someone who's interested in who I am right now, not who I remind her of or how I compare to someone else. That's what I deserve. That's what we all deserve. Thanks for reading, and for all the supportive comments. This community really is something special.